Top 5, a show where we count things down from number 5 all the way to number 1. This week's show, a little thought-provoking, a little tap your finger on your head going think. The top 5 Robins. The top 5 Robins.
This was a tough one.
It was really tough. Actually, I kind of had a tie for number 5, but since you didn't have it on your list, I went ahead and picked it. It is, the guy swings in on a vine because, you find all these vines in Sherwood Forest. Mm-hmm. But of course, I can only mean one Robin Hood. He robs from the rich. He gives to the poor. Robin Hood. Yes, Robin Hood. Tales been told time and time again in multiple forms and multiple formats. Something nice about this guy who wants to stick it to the king and, give back to the people that are being robbed by this tyrant.
Yep.
And, of course, he has his band of merry men.
Sometimes he's Kevin Costner. Sometimes he's a cartoon fox. And it's hard to tell which is actually...
Oh, man. I think my first Robin Hood would have been probably not the cartoon. I'm thinking like old PBS, they used to have the Robin Hood serials. I forget who the guy was on that. And then, of course, they had Robin Hood of Sherwood Forest, that movie with, what's his name? Errol Flynn, I think was who it was.
That's old school.
Yeah, that's probably where I remember my Robins from.
Nice.
So that is my number 5. I always enjoyed this, but yes, Robin Hood with Errol Flynn is probably my first Robin Hood. But that is my number 5 Robin. Yeah. What do you have for your number 5 Robin?
One time he fought the Doctor.
He probably did.
He did. My number 5 is actually an artiste. An artiste who is actually, if I'm not mistaken, a CBE. You know what a CBE is?
Is that one of those out-of-body experiences?
It's a... No,
in this case, you're inside your body, so it's a corporeal body experience?
No, basically, it's a chivalry, an order of chivalry. It's like a knighthood.
Oh, okay.
And he was, along with his 2 siblings, given a CBE, a knighthood, for his work in music as part of one of the greatest groups of the 1960s, 70s, and the beginning of the 1980s, in fact. And the fascinating part is, if you go all the way back to like 1958, you can hear him and his 2 brothers, one of whom is his twin, all singing. And they have singing
these
voices.
High falsettos.
No, they have normal voices. The high falsetto comes in the 1970s, circa Staying Alive. And of course, my number 5, Robin Gibb. Mm-hmm. 1/3 of the Bee Gees.
Got to stay alive.
Yeah, their little brother, Andy, is also a singer, but he was not a Bee Gee.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm actually quite sad because in researching this, I realized, again, that Barry Gibb is the last surviving Bee Gee, and I think he's the oldest. But Robin and his twin brother, Morris, and Barry were the Bee Gees, and they did a bunch of like folky stuff in the 50s and the 60s. And then in the 70s, completely revived their career, just went completely nuts in, the linen suits and the
disco area,
the little medallions and the big shoes. But the thing that's wonderful is I grew up going, oh, that disco stuff is terrible and it's stupid. And I kept, throwing it aside and discounting it and saying, oh, it's all terrible. But as an adult, hearing it again, even though I'm not fond of disco as a concept or a genre, you cannot help but love songs like Tragedy or Nights on Broadway. And of course, one of the most fun Robin things in recent years is Justin Timberlake portraying him on the Barry Gibb talk show on Saturday Night Live. Come on, Robin, talk to your brother. But, you have to appreciate a career of that length. You have to appreciate the breadth of their music. And the fact that this man had a fascinatingly huge head of hair, not as big as Big Brother Barry, but big enough to where you're like, yes, I respect your hair, Robin Gibb, CBE, former member of the Bee Gees. Rest in peace.
Yeah, no, you get the Saturday Night Fever album is really good.
Yeah.
And really, when we talk disco, I mean, that's what a lot of people think is Bee Gees.
Yeah.
There's so much more really bad disco. They kind of represent, I would say, the good end of the disco spectrum.
They're kind of, the gold standard for it. If you can get songs like How Can You Mend a Broken Heart out of your head, then you're a robot. That's all it is. You're a robot.
My number 4 this week, also music related. But let me tell you a little bit about my number 4, Robin.
Okay.
See, he rocks in the treetops all day long.
Mm-hmm.
He's rocking and bopping and singing his song.
What do the little girls on Jaybird Street say?
All the little birds on Jaybird Street, they love the Rockin' Robin. Going tweet, tweet, tweet. Of course, I'm talking about Rockin' Robin. Tweet, tweedly deet. Oh, my number 4, Rockin' Robin. Now, Rockin' Robin is one of these songs that seems like it's been around forever, and it really kind of has. You kids sing it now in schools as part of their, musical programs or their musical stuff that they have to do in school.
Yeah.
But my favorite version of Rockin' Robin has to be the Jackson 5 with Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
If you've heard that song, that is a really great rendition. Now, I know there's some earlier versions of it. That was one of the things. I don't know if it was Motown that did this, but really in the early days of music, they'd just be like, oh, here's this song. Why don't you record it? Or why doesn't this group record it? And sometimes you'd have the same song being recorded by different groups, like 3 or 4 different times at the same time and being released at the same time.
But competing with itself, yeah.
Yeah. But if you really want to find a great rendition of Rockin' Robin and learn all about the pretty little raven at the bird bandstand who taught him how to do the bop, and it was grand, then you need to go and check out my number 4, Robin, Rockin' Robin.
What's a bird band and how does it stand?
It's a bird bandstand. It's one of those bebop music things.
Now, was that a Jackson 5 song or was that a Michael solo song?
I don't remember. I always thought it was a Jackson 5 song, but maybe I'm mistaken. But I thought, well, maybe it's his. It says song by Michael Jackson.
Oh, see, I don't know.
But it's really weird because if the song is by Michael Jackson was alive when Bobby Day did it in 1958.
By means performed by, not written by. I'm pretty sure it was written by someone else.
Yeah, actually, it was written by Leon Rene under the pseudonym Jimmy Thomas and recorded by Bobby Day in 1958. Yes, they are. Michael Jackson recorded his own version of the song, which reached greater success. So I'm guessing, yes, it is only Michael Jackson by himself and not with the whole group. But it's one of those Motown releases, and Motown was great on doing that thing that I was saying. I know. I always thought for some reason I always thought that they were the backup singers in that, but I guess not. Cool. So Michael Jackson just doing it himself.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was it was
1, 2, 3.
I don't know if it's his first album, but
cool.
Yeah, got to be there. The debut studio. Yeah, that's his very first studio album by Michael Jackson.
That's neat.
Yeah. So there you go. A little back research there for all of our listeners. We are to your number 4, Matthew.
My number 4, like so many things in my life, revolves around 3 important concepts. There's fats and starches and sugars. And actually, my number 5 is one of those things that I probably don't, for the level of enjoyment that I have, I probably don't go there and patronize enough. A local restaurant, Red Robin.
Yum.
Yeah, to this day, I remember the response because I used to fill out the little note cards in the comic shop I used to work in, and you'd have to put something in there to identify Justice League 1961, Justice League 1987, Justice League 2003. But for Tim Drake's solo series, I just put Red Robin, yum. And everybody begged me never to change it because they thought it was wonderful. But Red Robin is a burger joint.
Mm-hmm.
You can go there. My favorite burger has, is it nationwide?
Yes.
I thought it was like Midwestern-y thing.
No, it's all the way out to California, and I'm pretty sure it is East Coast as well.
Nice. So the Red Robin burger joint, my wife goes there and she has a burger with a fried egg on top. No spam. I have one that I really love that has pineapple in it. But the real star of any visit to Red Robin are the bottomless steak fries.
Mm-hmm.
And a steak fry is a big, thick French fry. British people, I think you call them chips. but it comes with campfire sauce. And campfire sauce is a great mystery in the universe because it's essentially barbecue sauce mixed with ranch dressing.
Oh, that's weird because Red Robin is the first place wherever I had red sauce, where it's just ketchup and mayonnaise mixed together.
Yeah, it's kind of the same thing. This has got a little bit more of a kick to it, but that campfire sauce, oh man, I don't necessarily love bottomless steak fries so much as I need a solid potato-y vehicle to get all of that sauce, that campfire sauce, into my veins. But
yeah, put that on your hamburger too.
it's a little spendier than my usual because, family of four, you go out there, you'll spend $60. But it's, I like to go there. We probably go there once every year or two. It's right next to the movie theater, which is great. So you can get a burger and then walk into the movie theater. You can't take the burger with you, but you can eat the burger and then go to the movie theater. So Red Robin. Yum.
All right, we are quickly getting through our list, and we are at number 3. My number 3 is one Robin Goodfellow. Now, a lot of people might be going, okay, that name sounds familiar.
And wasn't he in that one sitcom spinoff of It's a Living?
He was in that that MTV reality show where everyone stops being nice and starts living in the real world.
No, there was no.
I'm talking about Puck. Puck is Robin Goodfellow, the hobgoblin that appeared in A Midsummer Night's Dream. He comes from mythology, but Shakespeare made him famous in the 16th century. And of course, he's popped in and out and all around. And if you are anybody who has done any kind of Shakespeare, and I'm pretty sure that A Midsummer Night's Dream is kind of like that high school Shakespeare play that everyone has to read along with Romeo and Juliet.
Right.
And I think this is where you get Puck coming out, and he's apologizing for all the antics that have gone on. And if we've offended you, we're sorry. But, let's all hold hands and shake hands and everything will be good. There's something about this Puckish character that, for 400, 500 plus years has been kind of this recurring fixture, this recurring staple in mythology and literature and television and everywhere else.
Right.
And so I kind of had to put Robin Goodfellow, a.k.a. Puck, right there in my number 3 spot.
See, he really sells an important bit of modern literature as well, because in Dead Poets Society, Dr. Wilson from House is a teenager and wants to be a super cool actor, but his father, Red Foreman, won't let him.
Right.
But it's okay because his teacher, Mork from Ork, tells him to go and stretch his legs, and he ends up shooting himself. But it's a little more complicated than that. But yeah, I've pretty much covered the basics of it. And it's a really, really great moment where you're just like, ooh, what is this thing? I want to go and see this play now.
Oh, yeah. If you've never seen A Midsummer Night's Dream, you should see it. It's done a lot. There are a couple of movies made from it, and I've enjoyed them all. I always like it. I like it when I like it when people do something really surreal with it, because at one point, what is it? The main character wakes up with a donkey's head, and I love it when they get super, super trippy with those fantasy sequences.
Trippy fantasy donkey head.
Yeah. So that's my number 3, Robin Goodfellow. Matthew, what is your number 3?
Nice. My number 3 is likewise a puckish figure, an eternal sprite, and fascinatingly actually fits in this category twice.
Oh, really?
And unusually for my top 5s, is not only a real person, but a real colleague, not only of mine, Stephen, but of yours. One of the contributors at Major Spoiler, one of the co-hosts of the Major Spoilers podcast on a relatively regular basis, Ashley Victoria Robinson, who loves to dress up as Robin. Born and raised in Canada. She's somewhere in her 20s. I think that she really kind of brings a lovely perspective to things, that Canada perspective. But it's also nice to have a young voice and a young female voice. And it's nice to have somebody going, hey, that nerdy crap that you've been talking about for 45 years? This is how it looks to young people who are actually hip and with it. Plus, it's always fun to just say her name as Ash V because her middle initial is V. So that's fun. But yeah, it's one of my favorite Robins. I told you this was a hard list. And I'm like, who am I going to put on this list? And I'm like, I can't not make my number 3, Ashley Victoria Robinson.
The son of a Robin.
The son of a Robin, correct. Yeah. Son or daughter, whichever.
Well, I think Robin's son.
Robin's son, yeah.
Like Peter's son.
Right.
Son of Peter.
Schleicher.
Yeah.
Which means son of Schleich.
Not really, but let us get to our number twos. Number two, you kind of already alluded to when you were talking about the movie there with the aforementioned Robin Goodfellow.
Oh, yeah, the one, the Mork from Ork?
Yeah, the Mork from Ork. In fact, I'm talking about Robin Williams, Mork from Ork. Probably in our lifetime, we have seen some amazing comedians rise and fall, right?
Oh, yeah.
We got Bill Cosby, George Carlin. Mm-hmm. We've got some of the Louis C.K.'s.
Yeah, you got your Dennis Leary's and your Bill Hicks's.
And your
Billy Crystals.
Billy Crystals. But I think if I were to look back at all of the comedians who've had a really powerful life and impact on culture and society, I'm going to have to peg Robin Williams right up there in the top 5. For me, it would probably be, if I were to say top 5 comedians of all time, we've got Bill Cosby, Robin Williams, George Carlin, Richard Pryor, and Eddie Murphy would be my top 5 comedians. Now, if we ever do a top 5 comedians, that list will probably change.
Well, no, it won't. It will still have Carlin in it.
It'll still have Carlin in it. It'll still have Cosby in it. It'll still have Robin Williams in it.
Your Carlin's, and I would definitely have Bill Hicks, but I don't know if Robin would make my top 5, but he'd definitely make a top 10.
Yeah, Robin Williams is really unique because he just came onto the scene with this super hyper approach to comedy and storytelling and impressions. And, people tried to bottle it and contain it in TV shows like Mork from Ork, or they just let it run wild in the case of the genie from Aladdin. But this guy has done so much, or did so much, and made so many people happy. I thought he was a fantastic actor. I think a lot of people dismissed him in his early life when, he was just this crazy over-the-top actor. He was doing things like Coming to America. You remember that, where he was supposed to be a crazy Russian?
Moscow on the Hudson.
Oh, Moscow on the Hudson. That's the one.
Coming to America.
Coming to America is the one with Eddie Murphy. Yeah, Moscow on the Hudson. But the first time that I ever saw him do something super, super serious was, let me see if I can find the name of it. It wasn't The World According to Garp, although it was probably around the same time.
Was it the one with Jeff Bridges, the Fisher King?
No. That came way after.
That's from like 91.
Yeah.
Was it Popeye?
No. I did love Popeye, though. I can't remember the name of it. Oh, it's Seize the Day is the name of it. It came out in 1986. So it did come out after Moscow on the Hudson. It was after Pryor's Place. It was after Best of Times and Club Paradise. But it was before Good Morning Vietnam. It was before The Adventures of Baron Munchausen and all these other ones.
I love Baron Munchausen.
I know, right? He just spins in as the moon, or the King of the Moon?
King of the Moon, and his head is floating around.
Yeah, but if you ever see him do Seize the Day, he plays this broken down man whose life is just falling apart. And it is it's so sad, and it so pulls at you that you look at this and you go, okay, yes, I can see The World According to Garp still is kind of funny, but somewhat tragic. This is Robin Williams playing straight up tragedy in this thing. And it's the first time, 1986, when I saw this, it was on American Playhouse. And I was like, oh my God, this is so good. And this is Robin Williams being a serious actor. He's now going to lift himself from the Laverne and Shirley's and Fonzie Hour and Mork and Mindy, sitcoms of the day. And he's going to do some serious work. And then, of course, he goes out and does, the Fern Gully, The Last Rainforest, and Hook, and The Fisher King, which is a great movie too. If you haven't seen
Fisher King is great. I also love him in 1 Hour Photo.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one. That one's like creepy.
Creep out.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's great
about
though,
that.
because it's a depth. He's such a likable character, and when you see him, your brain goes, "Hey, Mork, ha, oh." And no, he just turns all of that off and becomes this creepy stalker guy. Oh my God, it's terrifying.
Yeah, it really looks terrifying. That's why I never watched it, because it was just
it's good.
This is scary. But if you ever get a chance, track down Seize the Day.
I may have seen it. It's based on that Saul Bellow book.
Yes,
right?
It is Saul Bellow. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I swear I've seen it. I
probably made you watch it. Yeah, because that's where it was. It was on PBS initially, part of American Playhouse, I want to say. And I loved it so much, I tracked down a VHS copy of that. I had to get it through. I actually had the university purchase it with my money for me, because it was the only place you could get it is through Educational Resource. And I was like, please buy this. And I paid them and they're like, okay, sure, fine, whatever. And it was really good. And I just watched that. I don't know where it's at now. I'm sure you can find it on Netflix or something like that.
It's probably streaming somewhere.
I'm sure it is. Or maybe it's not. It's really obscure. When you look at his total list of movies that he's done, people are going to be talking about, Good Morning Vietnam and the one where he Mrs. Doubtfire and Good Will Hunting. And as you said, 1 Hour Photo. But I guarantee you, Pete, no one is going to ever say anything about Seize the Day.
Yeah, and I don't think anybody would, because nobody's ever heard of it.
Yeah, right.
What's fascinating to me, and sometimes I'm ashamed of this, but I'll occasionally watch Family Guy. And
my
Family
son
Guy
watches it all the time.
Right, and they'll do this thing where it's like, 2-minute riff, right? They did an entire 30-minute episode of references to Robin Williams and his work, and it was really funny, and it felt like a really loving tribute, even though it came out, right before his death.
Yeah.
And I was watching this and going, they did an entire sequence, like a 15-minute sequence, just of these Robin Williams jokes. And I'm like, think of the depth, the actual depth of your body of work, what you have to have in order for these people who specialize in 30-second cutaways to be able to do half a show about you. I mean, that right there is amazing.
Yeah. Sadly, as you mentioned, Robin Williams did pass away. He committed suicide.
Yes.
Which is pretty tragic. But let's take a moment here and say that if you are thinking about suicide or you need to reach out to somebody, you can contact the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-8255. That's 1-800-273-8255. Bringing it down just a little bit on top five, but Robin Williams, worth expanding on and talking about all these things. Just a great, great Robin, and a great, great, great comedian and actor and person. He made a lot of people happy. So there you go. What is your number two, Matthew?
My number two. Stephen and I, faithful spoilerettes listening, top fivers, 5 spots, I believe we call you. Stephen and I grew up in.
I call them my number ones. You are all my little number ones.
You are number one. Make it so, number one. Many jokes to have there. But we grew up in the 70s. And one of the things that the 70s did not have that you guys have today was 5,700 channels. We had 4 channels, sometimes as many as 12. But those channels were generally filled with syndicated programming. And among those syndicated programming were reruns of really old stuff. So we'd watch like Woody Woodpecker cartoons. We would watch Space Ghost would come up occasionally. Mm-hmm. You'd get things like Clutch Cargo, and my number 2, Rocket Robin Hood, which
is that like a space version of Robin Hood? Because I have never heard this. Is this one of those ones where they cut out the mouth on the paper dolls and they stick their lips through it and go, "Hello, it's time to go and rescue the man"?
Rocket Robin Hood was from like 1968. It is a Canadian joint, which is probably one of the reasons that you have not heard much about it. But the thing that's wonderful about it is, yes, it's basically just Robin Hood in space. So instead of the Sheriff of Nottingham, excuse me, now I have the hiccups. It's the Sheriff of Not, N-O-T. And he's this futurist. Wow. What a terrible time to get hiccups.
Yeah.
He's this futuristic guy. And shut up. Rocket Robin Hood actually goes through space with his merry men. Little John is there. Will Scarlet is there. Dr. Manta is there. I think they may have made that up. But he's using like a bow and arrow that shoots laser beams. Pew, 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 pew. And fascinatingly, I believe they're in the public domain because I've run into them in like quarter bins in Walmart going, "Hey, you want to buy every episode of Rocket Robin Hood?" And I'm like, I do, but I don't. It's one of those things where I remember it being this cool, futuristic thing. But recently I've also watched the Freedom Force shorts and the Space Sentinel shorts from a similar time frame. And boy, those sucked. I mean, they were really bad. And they reminded me that 7-year-old Matthew has no taste whatsoever. So I don't want to see Rocket Robin Hood, but I do. And I really kind of miss it because it is, it's very reminiscent of Space Ghost. Some of the designs were done by Alex Toth, who created Space Ghost.
Space Ghost, yeah.
Yeah, and it has a lot of similar design elements, and it's just kind of beautiful. And Rocket Robin Hood is also one of those characters where every once in a while, if you follow me on the Twitter, you know that I spend my lunch break just breaking down lists of 10 characters, my 10 things. People are like, hey, can you do this ridiculous thing? And I'm like, I sure can. Rocket Robin Hood is one of the characters who I have put up, and everybody's like, who that? You made that up. You made that up. And I will tell you right now, I've heard that hundreds and hundreds of times, and the only time it's been true was Kablamicus. And that, my friend, was partially Thomas Perkins' fault. But Robin Hood, Merry Men, in space, Rocket Robin Hood.
All right, we have reached our number ones. And I think we may have brought up this topic in the past. I don't ever remember doing a top 5 Robins episode before, but I know we've talked about this because the joke was going to be my top 5 Robins was going to be, Stephanie Brown.
Right.
Dick Grayson.
Right.
Actually, it probably would have started at the bottom with Damian Wayne. Ugh.
I think it was somebody was talking about top 5 birds, maybe.
Oh, maybe I don't remember, but yes, it would have been, Damian Wayne, Stephanie Brown, Jason Todd, Dick Grayson, and then my number 1 top 5 Robin, of course, Tim Drake.
Right.
So it makes sense that he would be my number 1 here on this top 5 Robins list.
Yeah.
So yeah, there he is. Everyone knows who Robin is, Batman's sidekick.
Sure.
He's approaching 80. My God, the guy is getting old. I liked him when he was Robin. I liked him when he was Red Robin. He's one of those Robins where I came in at the very tail end of Jason Todd getting the business end of a crowbar.
Oh, yeah. 87 was a bad year.
But at the same time, as Batman was going through this long, dark tea time of the soul, this next door neighbor kid figured out that, oh my God, that guy's Batman. I got it all figured out. And Robin's dead. I'm going to slip in and I'm going to convince him that I should be the next Robin. And Batman was like, no more Robins. And Tim Drake just kept fighting him and fighting him and fighting him. And eventually, I think it was a year or two in, Tim Drake's parents were murdered, or his mother was murdered. They were kidnapped. His mother was murdered. Yeah. And his dad was going through a depression and still kind of traveling around. So Batman, Bruce Wayne was like, yeah, I can take care of him. I can watch him, all that kind of stuff. And they partnered up and they were Robin, and there was a Robin Year One series, and there was a pretty cool Robin series just by itself. But you get to see this kid grow up and fall in love and make these decisions about what is right and what is wrong, and really form a really cool version of Young Justice. And then for whatever reason, somebody had a mad hate boner for him and blew off the part of his head, tried to make him grimdark by turning him into Red Robin, and then essentially wrote him out of existence by sending him off to another Earth. Or the future, or both.
The future of another Earth, I think is what it was.
Yes, and it's just like everyone is very upset. And of course he's back, or maybe he's not back. I don't know. But back. They really did a horrible hatchet job to Tim Drake, and he deserved much better. And he really is the best detective. I don't care what anyone else says. You can come at me. Dick Grayson is fine. But when it comes to smarts, Tim Drake, if there was ever somebody to fill in Batman's shoes, it should be Tim Drake. He is the better detective. He is the better master of disguise. He is the best version of Batman that isn't Batman.
And he's the first Robin to put on some pants.
Yes, he is.
You have to give him credit because he realized part of the problem with Robin was you got to put on some pants.
And I loved it when Tim Drake came on the scene because, no one knows what's going on. The Joker knew right away. He was like, no. You're not the one that I killed, and you're not that other one. I know when there's a new Robin, and you are totally different. And was totally didn't know how to deal with Tim Drake Robin for a long, long time. Yep. And that was also fascinating.
Yeah. And the thing is, he's also self-trained in Aikido and Judo, Karate, Savate, Tai Chi, Chimichanga, and
what's
Chinchilla.
That? What is the fighting dance?
Jim Kata.
Yeah, he's trained in that too.
Capoeira.
Tim Drake, my number 1 Robin.
Jim Kata.
All right, Matthew, it's up to you. Wasn't that? No, I'm thinking of Daktari.
You're thinking of Daktari. That was the thing with the lion.
What is your number 1?
Kids, the thing you have to understand about your Aunt Robin is that she was a teenage pop star in Canada. And that's why my number one is Robin Sparkles. And you probably don't care. So,
oh no,
feel free to
as soon as I found out top 5 Robins for the topic of this week's show, I was like, oh yeah, it's going to be Robin Sparkles.
It's got to be Robin Sparkles. The thing about Robin Sparkles that's wonderful is the television show How I Met Your Mother started as kind of a standard sitcom with some interesting framing elements. It started out basically, Otter Disaster defined it as friends, only Ross is the protagonist. And on that level, it sounds like a terrible show. He's not wrong. I mean, well, he is wrong. He's wrong very often. But he's not entirely wrong. There is definitely enough of a grain of truth in there for a metaphorical pearl to form in the mouth of any metaphorical clam. But more importantly, the show really came into its own when it developed this weirdo mythology. And part of that mythology is the fact that Robin, who is Ted's on-again, off-again girlfriend throughout most of the show, used to be a teenage pop star. And her first hit, Let's Go to the Mall, went double maple. And her second record, Sandcastles in the Sand, was a maple record in Canada, which I think is good. I'd have to ask my number 3 for sure. But there's also this wonderful running gag where you find out all of these things. She spent an entire year eating nothing but Orange Julius.
Mm-hmm.
And then we find she's best friends with Tiffany, and she was on a sitcom with Alan Thicke. And I just love this reveal of all these ridiculous moments of the person's life.
And it's great. It's not like it all happens all at once, right? It's not like suddenly you're like, oh, you were Robin Sparkles and you were with Tiffany and Alan Thicke. No. They played this thing out over multiple seasons.
Like 5 seasons of the show. And in 1996, at the 1996, the 84th Grey Cup, Robin actually declared Robin Sparkles dead and said that her new name was Robin Daggers. And that's the day grunge was born, in 1996 in Canada. And if you ever get a chance to hear her hit song, P.S. I Love You, ask Rodrigo about it. I'm sad that, he didn't make it to this episode because I think Rodrigo would probably sing P.S. I Love You. When you see Rodrigo, ask him to sing P.S. I Love You.
Yeah, he'll do it on the spot.
Yeah, see, it's really wonderful. He'll even do the dance.
And if he doesn't do it, if you go up and you ask him to do the song and the dance, and he doesn't do it, it means he doesn't like you.
That's true. That's exactly what it is. Boy, does he listen to the shows? I kind of hope he does now.
He's never done the song and dance for us, so...
That's true. It must not like us.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Our top 5 Robins.
The mall.
The mall. It's got it all. I also had Christopher Robin down.
Oh, that's a good one. That was almost my name when I was born.
Christopher Robin?
Yeah, my mother said that she was going to name me Christopher Robin, and then this 13-pound baby came out and went...
And they named you. And she decided to name you the house on Pooh Corner.
I will poo on your corner.
I'm trying to think of any other Robins. I think we kind of hit some of the big ones.
We did. Here's
another one on my list. Robin Leach.
Oh, I'm screaming and I don't know why.
Yeah, for people that grew up in the 80s and maybe the early 90s, but mostly the 80s, that Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous. That was kind of the downfall of civilization, I think.
The Rich and Famous. I don't think it was a downfall of civilization.
I think because it created that. I think it created that I want to be like the celebrities, so I have to have the same thing as the celebrities. And so I'll start to go into debt and do stupid things like celebrities.
I believe that would have happened, I think, without Lifestyles. I feel like it was reflecting sociological forces.
Yeah, that decade of excess.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying that it's not part of it. I just don't know that it's responsible for the decline of Western civilization. But
yeah.
The thing about it, when you talk about Robin, it's such a wide open thing. You could be talking about a bird.
Mm-hmm.
You could be talking about any number of young women. You could be talking about any number of young men. You could be talking about Kermit the Frog's nephew.
Yeah, you could. He didn't even make the list. I bet he would have been on Rodrigo's list.
I know he would have been on Ashley's list.
All right, listeners, here is what you need to do. Head over to majorspoilers.com in the comment section for this episode. You got to do it for this episode. We want you to share your top 5 Robins. Tell us who they are and why you love them. We're going to read them. Everyone else is going to read them. Why? Because it's elementary. Everyone loves a list.
This podcast is copyright 2019 by Major Spoilers Entertainment, LLC.